Hi there, library friends. Happy spring, happy April 1st, and happy National Poetry Month. So we are here to have our new program called Flower Power. And we have some beautiful flowers here. These are the two types of flowers we're going to be talking about today, along with some awesome poetry. So, like we said, that plants and flowers, they grow and change and they bring beauty to the world, just like poetry does. Poetry is basically using words to paint emotions and ideas and sometimes fun and silliness. And so we are going to talk a little bit about how flowers and poetry go together, making the world a better place, all in this wonderful month of April. So we're going to start right off with our two types of flowers that we're going to talk about today, and I bet you can tell me what they are. Do you know what they are? We have some pink ones here, some yellow ones here. I'll let you think about it. I'm sure you've seen them outside because they are one of the first flowers to pop up in the springtime, and I'm sure some of you may have some in your gardens or along your walkways. I have some of these at my house. These aren't quite up yet. They're starting to grow, but they're not quite opened up into bloom. They're tulips and daffodils, right? So those are kind of some of the very first spring flowers that we see after a very long winter popping up in our garden. So we're going to talk a little bit about them and what their meaning is, because a lot of times, way back, storytellers and poets, they would use flowers to convey hidden meanings of how you feel and messages with flowers, because flowers were such an easy thing to grow and to give, and people used them to tell people different things that maybe they didn't want to say out loud. So we're going to talk about that. We'll also talk a little bit about how to grow them. So if you have some of these at your house, you probably know that they come from a bulb, right? They're not seeds, so you don't plant them like you would with little tiny seeds in the ground. These are actually bulbs. And if you don't know what a bulb looks like, you can look it up. But if you've ever seen an onion, it kind of looks like that, right? So there's like this kind of onion shape, and it has roots on the bottom and a tip at the top, and that is what grows up out of the ground. And the one thing that you want to know is, if you want flowers in the spring, guess when you have to plant them? You have to plant them kind of in the fall. So you put them in the ground, you give them a nice bed to rest over the winter, and then in the springtime, that's when they grow, and that's when they come up out of the ground. So we have something here at the library for you that you can come and pick up, and this one is a growing guide for tulips, and daffodils are kind of along the same lines as growing tulips, so you can follow similar instructions. And this is from a kids gardening website that we're going to be using throughout this program, and it's a really great program. It's a really great website that you can check out, and they have growing guide tips for lots of different plants and flowers and fruits and vegetables. So if you're interested in gardening, that would be a really great one. So I'm going to read you some fun facts about tulips. They are the most popular in cut flower arrangements, and the flowers will last up to a week. So and they actually will grow even after you cut them. So when you cut them and you put them in water to give as a bouquet, they will actually continue to grow, which is kind of interesting. The majority of tulips are grown in Holland, so that's where a lot of the tulips are grown. 7 million flowers. 7 million flowers are planted each year, so that's crazy. And then you also can see them in a lot of artwork. If you can see here, Claude Monet, he painted those tulips. All right, so there's some really cool things that you can do. So if you are going to plant and care for tulips, you want to plant the bulbs 6 to 8 weeks before your ground freezes. So that's going to be back in like October, November time. And then you're going to wait for them to grow. You're going to put them in the ground about 12 inches. So you have a ruler, that's about 12 inches deep, probably about right there, okay? And you're going to put them so they're about 4 to 6 inches apart. And then you're going to put them in the ground, and then you're going to cover them up with mulch, because guess what? Tulips are tasty. So rabbits and moles and deer and other hungry little creatures that like to dig in the ground, they love to eat them. So if you planted some tulip bulbs and you don't see any tulips in the spring, they could have been somebody's lunch. So you have to make sure that you protect them so that they don't get eaten, okay? So those are a couple of different topics that you can come and find and get this growing guide for tulips. But I also wanted to talk about, like I said, what tulips can mean. So back in, kind of more older times, tulips meant deep love. So if you were to give someone some tulips, it meant that you loved them very, very much and very unconditionally. And it also means rebirth, and so do daffodils. Daffodils are new beginnings. So those are the times, because in the spring, it's always a new beginning, right? We're starting over, we're coming out of winter, the world is waking back up again. So both of these kind of represent a new beginning. So maybe if someone is moving to a new house, a tulip or a daffodil might be a good gift for them, because it means you're starting over and it's going to be great and you're going to have a really great, fun new beginning. So that's something to think about, okay? So also another thing that they talk about in my Flowers and Their Meanings website that I found, you can actually give these daffodils as a good luck. So again, if you're starting a new job or you're starting a new school, or maybe, like I said, you're moved to a new house, daffodils are a great present because they mean good luck. However, they always appear in bunches, right? You don't really ever see like a single daffodil. And that, I think, is because, again, old legends and old folk tales say that if you just have one tiny daffodil, that's actually bad luck, because you always see them kind of in big groups, and if there's only one, that means there wasn't such good luck there. So you never want to give just one single daffodil. You always want to give a nice bunch of daffodils, and it helps that they grow in nice big bunches. So that's an easy thing to do. So that's just some ideas. So when you are writing or you're making some poetry and you talk about tulips or you talk about daffodils, you can use that as a metaphor for something new, or a new beginning, or starting over, or good luck, or even in the tulips case, some deep unconditional love, right? It's kind of like a love you might have for your mom or your dad, or your sisters, or your brothers, or your grandmas, or your grandpas, that really deep, strong love. You want to pick a tulip as the representation for that, okay? All right, so those are some of the things about our beautiful flowers that we have here. So now I want to talk a little bit about National Poetry Month. April is National Poetry Month. We're very excited about it. I love poetry. Poetry is probably one of my favorite ways of expressing ourselves and making some really great ways to share our emotions and share our joy and our sadness and all these wonderful things through words, because words are amazing and they're actually, I think, a little bit magical. So one of the very favorite books that I like to share in National Poetry Month is pocket poems, because poems don't have to be hard or complicated or really, confusing or anything like that. They can actually be little tiny poems that you can put right in your pocket, and they will help you throughout the course of your day. So this is pocket poems, and they were selected by Bobby Katz, and this is different authors of different poems here. So I'm going to read you the first poem that's in this book. So it's called A Pocket Poem. With a poem in your pocket and a pocket in your pants, you can rock with new rhythms. You can skip, you can dance, and wherever you go and whatever you do, that poem in your pocket is going there too. You could misplace your homework, you could lose your left shoe, but that poem in your pocket will always be part of you. And nothing can take it, and nothing can break it. That poem in your pocket becomes part of you. So if you have something special that you want to remember, or you want to kind of keep yourself going, put a little poem, put some words down on some paper, make a poem, and put it in your pocket. because nobody can take that from you. I think that's pretty awesome. So I'm going to read you one of the pocket poems that are in this book. And if you happen to want to borrow this book, we will have it on display in the library and you can come and borrow it. It's a really great book to read, and especially if you like poems about all different kinds of things. So this is a poem called Alianas Street. My street has a garden, neat and small, that tells me it's summer, it's spring, it's fall. But all winter long, it does not make a peep. Please pass it on tiptoe because the plants are asleep. So that is a poem about a garden, and you can see the picture here. So a garden will tell you what time of year it is, right? Because if you see tulips and daffodils, you know it's springtime. If you see things like roses and azaleas and all those flowers, you know it's summer. And if you see things like mums, those are going to be in the fall. So the garden can actually tell you what time of year it is. And if you don't see any plants except for maybe some evergreen trees, guess what? It's probably winter and the plants are asleep. So that's this book, one that I really enjoy. And so I hope that maybe you will come and check it out and borrow it to get some good poetry ideas. Another one that I like, and that's kind of going to be about a type of poetry that we're going to talk about today, is A Was Once an Apple Pie by Edward Lear and Suze MacDonald. So this kind of starts on the idea of what we're going to talk about this week. Our poem of the week is an acrostic poem, and it uses first letters to help make the poem. But this one doesn't quite use it exactly as an acrostic. It actually uses it sort of like a metaphor. So I'm going to read a little bit of it for you. So, like I said, A was once an apple pie. So let's take a peek here. And then you can see we have an apple pie and we have a bear. So it's really kind of an alphabet book. We have A, B, and it goes all the way to Z. So it goes like this. A was once an apple pie. Pitty witty, titty pitty, nice and sidey, apple pie. B was once a little bear. Berry wary, hairy berry, takey carry, little berry. Oh my goodness. So you can see that what's another cool thing about poetry is it doesn't have to make sense. It can be all kinds of strange, silly, rhymey words that just like to roll off your tongue and paint a picture. So here we have, what? A cat. C was once a little cat. Catty, batty, matty, catty, furry, fatty, little cat. Oh my goodness. D was once a little dog. Doggy, moggy, oggy, noggy, waggy, woggy, little dog. So you can imagine those animals with all of those kind of silly words that kind of fit in together. So, E was once a little eel. Eely, weely, peely, eely, twirly, tweely, little eel. F was once a little fish. Fishy, squishy, dishy, fishy, make a wishy, little fishy. Oh my goodness. So once again, you can come in and check out this book if you found it kind of fun and interesting, and it takes you through all the letters. So it'll be very interesting to see what represents each letter. So bringing us to that, we're going to talk about something called an acrostic poem. So I have a handout here that you can come and pick up. So an acrostic poetry is basically you're using a word that means something to you, could be, or it could just be a word that you like, and you are going to write that word vertically down the page. So this says poems, right? P-O-E-M-S. And so then that's going to be the subject of your poem. That's what you're going to write your poem about. And then what you're going to write on each line can be adjectives that describe that thing. It could be something that means something to you about that thing. So here it gives some suggestions. It can be personal thoughts. It can be original ideas. It can be expressive language, which is like those adjectives, right? Mental images, so how you think it looks. And sensory details, meaning like with the little cat, fatty and matty, and the dog was waggy and woggy, right? So you would use the first letter and then write something after that that starts with that letter that could be any of these things, okay? So I'm going to read you some examples of those. So in this book called African Acrostics, okay? So we have on the inside, and has some really cool photography too of some different animals. So, acrostic. Welcome all poets, both new or well-versed, non-rhymers or rhymers. Come, dive in head first. Inviting all writers, now you're just the right age. Explore the acrostics that rides down the page. Get a word you enjoy and would like to define. Write it down vertically and fill in each line. Your name is a very good way to begin. Surprise yourself. Find that poem within. So here is the poem on the page. And if we go like this and cover it up so that we just see the first letters, it says word in edgewise. So that is the subject of the poem. They want you to get a word in edgewise and write an acrostic poem. So let's see an example. So, what do you think this poem is about? An elephant, right? So it's called Eye to Eye. Ear sails flap in the breeze, leather limbs in rhythm, evenly swaying in step, plod slowly over Africa. Huge as a dinosaur, yet a tender soul from such a noble mammoth alumni. There is wonder abuzz, staring into eyes so wise. So, if we go like this, we have elephants. So that's the title and the subject of the poem, and then they wrote sentences and phrases that describe the elephant. Here, let's look at another one. Find the right, there we go. So here we have one called The Watcher. Silent sits the slinker. Oh, wise, intelligent thinker. Morning on earth's warning hearth, awash in lazy spill. Does my cat dream leaping kin on our sunny windowsill? So if you look down, it says, so mellow. So this cat is so mellow, just taking it all in and hanging out in the sunbeam, like a lot of our cats do, right? And then we have over here, a lioness, lightning locked in legs of plush velvet, old nobility poised, noiseless, even sunlight shivers. Ooh. She's ready to go. And it says Lioness, lioness. So those are some examples of acrostic poetry. So I hope we kind of inspired you a little bit, enough to write your own acrostic poem. And I've given you a word, tulip. So you have the lines, you have the first letters. So now you're going to look at that tulip and you're going to give us a poem that describes that tulip. So this will be here at the library for you to pick up. And if you write your poem, you can bring it back and we're going to display it. So we have all of these wonderful poems for National Poetry Month. So I'll give you on the back here something to close out with. So it's called Perfect Timing. So like I said, we're doing Flower Power this month. It's perfect timing because plants and poetry go together. So here is a tulip poem for you. Tulips hide far beneath mountains of snow, waiting for spring to invite them to grow. Tucked in warm bulbs, they say, go, set, ready on the very same day. How do they know? So it does seem like they all bloom and pop out of the ground all at the same time. They can't talk to each other, so how do they know? Something to think about. So, like I said, we have lots of good handouts for you. We have lots of fun things that you can pick up, and we will have every single week. We're going to do another one with 2 new flowers next week and a new type of poetry that you might want to give a try to. And at the very end of April, we're going to be doing a planting and poetry extravaganza where you are going to make some acrostic poems for yourselves, and we're going to do some seed packet poetry so that you can get some seeds and some things that you can grow and make some beautiful flowers and make maybe a poem in the shape of a flower garden. Okay? All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you'll come back next week and find out the next 2 flowers that we're doing. And I hope I've inspired you to start writing your words and your emotions in the shape of a poem. See you guys next time. Bye, everybody. Take care.